Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is David Goldschmidt. I run the Procurement and Logistics Academy, which are training partners for SAPEX, APEX, and SIPS courseware. Accelerated growth is a phenomenon which occurs when a company grows at a faster rate than similar companies in their industry. This is evident within SMEs. Even though growth is good, accelerated growth is disruptive, and managing it is challenging. What lessons can be learned from SMEs who have experienced accelerated growth? I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. I'd like to introduce you to Greig, Jansen, the CEO of Pura Beverage company. Greig has been building relationships his entire career and steering companies to reach the next level globally. This strategy has driven productivity and sales, improved corporate culture, increased employee engagement, and boosted market share. Known as an authority in defining vision and implementing mission-critical strategies, Greig created stability and sustainability across channels and built strategic alliances through the value chain. Greig has previously held the position of CEO of SGK Commodities AG and CEO of Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, the Ethiopian operation. Welcome, Greig. I'd like to introduce Jan Tukker, the MD of Business Chain. Jan is an accomplished business leader with 22 years of industry experience gained in retail, pharmaceutical, consumer, FMCG, and manufacturing industries in companies including the Fashini Retail Group, GlaxoSmithKline, and mining and industrial rubber. He has a strategic approach and a keen interest in combining systems, processes, and people. In 2021, Jan created Business Chain to assist companies with their supply chain strategy and development processes. Welcome, Jan.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks. And finally, Marius Wessels, Manager Professional Services at SYSPRO. Marius is an experienced manager with a demonstrated history of working in the management consultancy industry. He is he's skilled in operations management, analytical skills, business process design, industrial engineering, and continuous improvement. With a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering with over 12 years experience as an ERP implementation consultant and project manager for system implementations, Marius now heads up the professional services for SYSPRO EMEA. He is responsible for support, consulting, and education user enablement services to SYSPRO channel partners and customers within SSA. Marius has an excellent track record of success with complex system landscapes in multiple industry verticals, including agriculture, corrugation, FMCG, mining, and steel. Welcome, guys. Really great to have you here. Jan, I have a question for you. When we talk about SMEs, what do we mean? What size of a company are we talking about? And also, we talk about accelerated growth. What does this mean?
Hi, Dave, and thanks for the invite, and great to meet everybody that's on this webinar today. So SME has a variety of different meanings for different people, but essentially it's small and medium enterprises that are starting up and are feeling the pains of growth. So by definition, it could be anywhere between a company that's 5 to 10 million rand a year to a company that's perhaps 200. Although I think the definition is a bit broader. So as you're growing from, say, 100 million to 2, 3, 4, 500 million rand, the growth and the requirements for the solutions to help your business at that particular time are quite different from a 5 to 10 million rand change. So it's a turbulent space to be in for any business, and I'm imagining that the participants on this webinar are probably feeling that pain at the moment.
Oh, thanks, Jan. Before we go into some of the challenges around accelerated growth, I thought I'd like to explore just how accelerated growth comes about. Greig, can you maybe help me there?
Absolutely. Thanks, David. Pleased to meet everyone on the webinar. So effectively, accelerated growth really is around your business taking an exponential step in growth, and certainly in my experience, there has to be a catalyst for that. And simply put, what I've experienced is a burning platform appears in your business, So either you put that in, or circumstances change, which create a burning platform, which effectively is a challenge that you have to be as agile as you can to turn into an opportunity. So, the clever guys will tell you that, if your business is moving along nicely, but it's, maybe organic growth, and you want to get, this accelerated growth curve, you need to create a burning platform in your business. And, that could be, you want to be number one in your industry, or you want to enter into a new market segment, etc. But, quite often what happens is that, we have burning platforms thrust upon us. Could be competition coming in. I think all of us have experienced COVID, which certainly across most businesses has been a burning platform. But really what it allows a business to do, or what it should allow a business to do, is for that creative thinking to come about. So it's not business usual anymore, it's business unusual. And effectively, they always say that mindset is so important. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So kind of to put it all together, David, to answer your question, accelerated growth, in my experience, really happens when there's some sort of burning platform, whether it's artificial or it's happened via a circumstance. And what it really results is a total change in mindset, business unusual. Really, how do you get out of the cycles and routines that you are in, through some clever thinking, how to implement something different, which normally results in some accelerated growth.
Great, thanks, Greg. So essentially, it's kind of an urgency that is there, which is changing the business as usual kind of approach, and keep focusing potentially a different direction. Thanks, Greg. I'd like to ask our attendees via a poll, just what challenges they've actually experienced as a result of rapid growth. There will be a screen that appears. If you are able to scan the QR code, you can go onto the web page. If not, you can put in the web description on your web browser and put in the ID. And you are welcome to insert just some of the issues potentially that you've encountered. I'll give you a little bit of time just to insert some of the values there, if you can. Here we go. So customer service seems to be an issue, and stock losses, theft. Systems and processes. Capacity constraints. While we're waiting for the poll to be completed, just to ask, I would imagine there's not one specific area that is common across a business. I would imagine it's industry that you are in, and see the kind of environment that you work in that would determine these kind of issues. Wow, that's quite interesting that the HR challenges seem to be quite a big issue. Understaffed, systems and processes seem to be fairly important as well. Stock losses. I'm going to give a few moments more just for before we close the poll. Okay, I'd like to close the poll if that's okay. I'd like to ask the panelists, maybe Marius, just having a look at the results that we've seen within this poll. What are your thoughts, just in terms of sort of commonality of kind of problems that we're seeing there?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, Dave. While preparing for this, obviously you go and think of what the responses to a poll like this would be, and I'm quite surprised by, I think, a lot of us, a lot of these we would have thought this. Listen, this is a issue. I mean, if you look at SMEs and the growth that they've experienced, and I mean with us at SYSPRO, I think we expected a much bigger outfall in terms of our customers than what was at the end really realized, and what happened. So I think we expected a lot more in terms of customers closing their doors, and I think that what this is about is that it actually didn't happen. But for those guys that did experience growth in the COVID, it for us, it just definitely came down to a lot of if you're running, and I know we've all heard the expression, this big business runs on Excel. And then there's one calculation issue in an Excel sheet somewhere that's creating a major problem, and let's take stock losses or stock control. But all of that boils down to system and processes that need to be in place. So yes, 100%. I think a lot of this is valid. The one that's interesting for me is the HR challenges. I'd be very interested to dig a little bit deeper into that. But the rest of the stuff is basically around control and managing ins and outs, and making sure that you can, by doing that, meet your customer expectations and service levels that you need to handle.
Possibly on the HR challenges, it could be that people's jobs descriptions are changing, and as a result of that, they're not necessarily doing what they were hired to do. Causing friction and potentially sort of disruption to business.
100%, and I think what we've definitely experienced as well is the right skills for the right job. I don't know, that's definitely a shortage to get skilled people to do the job that needs to be done. That might be one of the points there as well.
Cool. Thanks, Marius. I'd like to go back to our panelists, and I've got a question, the same question that I'd like to ask all of them, because I think it's quite pertinent, just with the kind of experience that they have. And I'd like to start off with you. From your experience, what are the pain points that come from accelerated growth?
So was that for me?
Yes.
The line just died quick, so okay. Thanks. But yeah, pain points. So I think that that word cloud really highlighted some of the symptoms of the problems. Pain points, when you're growing, you don't have all the people required doing the right jobs and knowing exactly what they're supposed to do. And smaller businesses have people that are much broader in their approach. They get involved in many aspects of the business. And as businesses grow and they become a lot more corporate, you get much more silo driven because there are structures and processes in place. So between those two worlds, you have this very dynamic, quick thinking environment. And when you're small, and as you suddenly have rapid growth, you're just grappling to keep control of the business because people that used to do things quite manually and in a very individualistic way don't get around to getting everything done. And so now they want processes and procedures in place. And so systems and structure is much needed. So they feel they can't get their arms around the situation as much as they used to, because they've grown beyond a certain size. And the tools and processes and thinking that they had before are just becoming very irrelevant. So it's a very uncomfortable place to be in. There are solutions, but the other thing they face is they don't have bottomless pits of money to throw at great solutions, which big corporates do. So it's a space where you're looking for solutions to fix short-term problems. You're probably looking for just a couple of months or years, but you're certainly not strategically saying, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be here and there. You're just trying to get through the next couple of months or years, or year.
Absolutely. Balancing the short term and the long term. You're obviously on this treadmill and you are running your operations. You're running a business because obviously that's what you do. And I think it's also about actually having time available to give yourself the time to actually review kind of where you're at. But thanks, Jan.
Just to add to that quickly, sorry, Dave. So
Yeah.
I think your comment just prompted another thought, is that, you know, when you're a growing business, very few businesses would then think, let me go and really understand my current processes to work out what's wrong, to work out what my new process should be. They're flying on the seat of their pants, and they're trying to survive. And so the disciplines of approaching a business problem are not always there. And so I see that in my clients, where they just do things a certain way, and they think that's the right way, and they haven't had the time to go and look outside or talk to people or experts to say, how should this be done? And there's a crux there that happens kind of, I don't know where the crux happens, but for every business maybe a bit different. But then they need help, whether that's a chat or a coffee or a consulting type environment, but they need help, you know.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jan. Greig, what challenges have you seen?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think similar to Jan's, but I think there's some additional ones that we've seen, and certainly with accelerated growth, I'd say one of your biggest challenges is one of mindset, of yourself, but also of the people in your company. As you grow rapidly like this, there is that feeling of, my gosh, it's a bit out of control. I'm riding a wild bull, and it's going crazy. And I always tell our team is that it's that age-old adage, you staring down an elephant, and how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. So I think it's so pertinent that you've got to take stock of where you are. You've got to have the mindset to say, wow, what a phenomenal opportunity that we've got this amazing growth. But at the same time, take a step back and say, well, the way I'm going to address this is kind of bite size. I think just what we've done in our business is the way we talk to one another really reflects how we build this into our business. So, as a result, we have banned the word problem from our business. It doesn't exist, because a problem is something that for us is like hitting a brick wall. That's a big problem. So we either have challenges or we have opportunities. So it just changes the way that your mindset perceives an issue, because accelerated growth is amazing, but let's just face it, it's all about headwinds, and getting through those headwinds. You're still growing, but as you grow faster, that headwind gets a bit stronger. So when we talk to one another, it's about, wow, look at this opportunity we have, and everyone has a little chuckle, because we all know it's a disaster, something we've got to fix. But the mindset is, okay, right, how are we going to find a way around this? So that's kind of the first thing, is just a constant mindset. And I think as a head of an organization, everyone takes a direction of you, or the lead from you. So you've got to rock up every single day with the right mindset, and also every single day with the ability to lead, direct, and motivate your teams. That's the first thing. I think the second very, very important thing is cash flows. As your business grows and accelerates, that cash burn gets bigger and bigger, and it's something that you've got to watch very, very closely. I think the stat is that 8 out of 10 businesses fail because of cash flow, regardless of how successful they are. So those are the two main ones that we've seen. Again, aligned with Jan, as you grow, you've got to put the process and procedures in. You've got to be very hard about that. So it's almost hard-headed on business, soft-hearted on people, because without that foundation, it becomes very difficult to kind of continue to accelerate that growth. So similar to Jan, but just from a slightly different angle based on the experiences that we've seen.
What specific things? I know you've mentioned kind of problems, and obviously there are new things that are coming your way. Cash flow being obviously critical, but specifics. I mean, things that you've actually picked up within your business. You're saying, I didn't expect this.
Yes, so good question, and I think from the things raised on the survey that you've just done now, there's certainly a couple of things that we've experienced that have been interesting. So the HR challenge I can definitely relate to. And I think what happens is, when you start off in a business, there's a skill set that you require. And it's around a skill set to just do the fundamentals. As your business grows, the intricacies around the job that's required get a little bit more involved, or let me put it another way, the job description really grows. So you need people with a higher level of skill. Now, it's quite interesting because some people can make that jump, some people can't make that jump. So there's this balance between needing to bring people in ahead of the curve, as well as understanding that you might have people in your organization that can make that stretch, and some people that might not make that stretch. And again, this is where you've got to be hard-headed on results, soft-hearted on people, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with people's lives. But you'd be doing someone a disservice, putting them into a position where they're currently not qualified or don't have the ability to perform at that level, because the only thing that's going to happen is that ultimately they're going to fail. So that's something that we've certainly experienced in a big way. I think from a very practical solution, I mean, there was a comment you made about businesses operating on Excel and formula that goes out. I mean, look, we've had a couple of those happen in our business, so it's about avoiding those. But I think also, I think you've also got to grow into your boots. You don't need to start with a full ERP from day one. And I think it's about constantly taking a step back and evaluating milestones that would trigger what to put in your business, bearing in mind, ideally, you always need to invest ahead of the curve. And I think that's the key thing. And so many people make the mistake of going, well, you know what, like when we make so much money, we're going to do that. And unfortunately, again, in my experience, it's too late, because you actually needed that, whatever that was, a few months before. So it's kind of a penny wise, pound foolish, which I suppose also goes to the cash flow balance type of thing. One is about really operational budgets and working capital, and the other is around either bringing in people or putting in systems and processes, again, ahead of the curve, but at the right time, so that you still grow into it and you don't have to carry unnecessary expenses through your balance sheet.
Cool. Thanks, Greg. Very, very insightful. Marius, maybe your thoughts. You come from a slightly different angle where you are dealing with quite a lot of different companies in different sectors.
Yes, thanks, Dave. Obviously, I think both Jan and Greig have already mentioned. I mean, cash flow is king. A lot of companies struggle with that. Operational efficiencies, customer service issues, all of these are consequences of this growth happening. What I've picked up, and that's maybe where Jan also mentioned that where we're going to have to drink the coffee and just give a bit of advice, and Greig also said at the beginning of the talk to say there was a burning platform, or there was something that happened to bring this need and for the business to get started, and with that there was innovation. And what normally happens with when you get into this crunch and you're just getting in this rat race of saying, guys, we need to get this out, a lot of these companies lose that innovation. And that's actually very sad, because I think that's what brought them there in the first place. So for me, other than the normal stuff that has already been mentioned, is to say, guys, please remember that you need to keep that competitive edge that you had, the innovation that you had. It also comes down to the skills that Craig mentioned now, to say, okay, now I've stepped up into a different level of business that I'm playing, so I need to get the right skills in place to continue that innovation and making the right business decisions going forward. So that is one that I think from what I've picked up during my days as well, that's there. Coming from a consulting background, Jan, and this might be, and just again around the resources. So obviously, if you're in consulting, you're selling hours, and there's salaries and all of that in there. So it's always in terms of resourcing, making sure that you most of the time need to be in trouble in terms of the manpower towards the work that needs to be completed. And that's a very fine balance to have the right senior resources, middle, junior resources as well. If you're going, so you want to say my previous 12 years, I was in a consulting company that grew from 6 consultants to 75 in the end. And that curve was also exponential, and that made it extremely difficult from delivering a customer project or any implementation project with limited resources, and always actually being on the back foot to say, you know what, I can't go and employ 10 people because I don't have the work. So I'm waiting for the work, and then I need to go and employ the 10 people. And that's typical challenges that I think these companies sit with in scenarios like this.
Absolutely. And I mean, just to go back to your first point, and I think it's absolutely, it's something we should really stress, is that with businesses that have grown, generally they're coming from, they have a competitive edge and they have an entrepreneurial mindset. And you actually want to kind of foster that, you want to keep that. And, it's kind of that tussle between being agile, being reactive, being competitive, going off in directions and being successful. And as a result of that, that has brought even more success. But it obviously does get to the point where you
absolutely.
Sorry, Marius, go for it.
No, sorry. I think we've just, from our business currently, we've coined the phrase customer retention is the new growth, given COVID and given what's going on. And if you don't service that customer, there's just another guy that's going to do that. So that's absolutely to do that is what you need to be able to react to.
Oh, cool, absolutely. Identified the pain points. We've had a bit of discussion about them, but dealing with them. I mean, I think that we did mention it's kind of having the right kind of skill set. But maybe the right people in place, maintaining that competitive advantage, not putting out fires, which I think a lot of energy is spent doing. But if we had to take a step back, what other things could we possibly do? So we've heard it from customers that you've had contact with, but if we were not involved in that business and we had to give advice, what could we maybe do there? Jan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I mean, that is the kind of space I'm in at the moment with my clients. So, it's a fine balance, because you can't go in and suggest that they spend a lot of money on systems when they don't have a lot of money. So there's a real balance of perhaps some more longer term projects that you got to identify. So it needs an analysis of what is needed in the business. From an outsider, it's quite easy. When you're inside the machine and it's turbulent, you can't really see the wood for the trees. Either you have to have somebody inside the company who is looking at performance improvement or process improvement, or you get somebody from outside to come and have a look at your system, your processes, to make recommendations. But you need somebody doing that. And what I noticed in a lot of companies is they don't have a person. They don't have somebody from outside or somebody in the inside trying to improve processes. They're all just trying to work at what they're doing at the moment. And I think that's quite a key element. So I recommend to the attendees of the webinar, at least have somebody in your company that's accountable for developing processes, making them better, and highlighting where the issues are. The second thing is finding the root cause of a problem. Where you think a problem exists, it may not be there. It's like a golf swing. You never really know where it is. But the root of a problem in your sales cycle with your customers could well be how you ordered product from your suppliers. And so if you don't understand what's causing the problem, then you don't know how to fix it. Knowing your processes is quite a key thing. So mapping processes on a piece of paper, putting it on the wall, and having people in the room look at it and say, wow, we didn't realize we did it like that, because we evolved a certain way and suddenly we're doing things that aren't really best practice or good practice at least. Yeah. So those are a couple of things that perhaps your attendees can use in their organizations.
Yeah, I think the challenge again is around the running of the business and having foresight to say that there are unintended consequences, us actually not having proper processes in place. They are tangible, but a lot of the time they kind of get lost in the noise of the running of the business. So actually, you're absolutely right. Highlighting that is the key issue, and actually having a dedicated resource to be able to do that in some form or other. In some instances, a fresh set of eyes from a consultancy point of view. Other instances, it could be actually having somebody inside the business. The advantage with the fresh set of eyes outside of the business, so an external resource coming in, is that they're not actually, they're not worried about the day-to-day running of a business, but they have a project that they can actually run to be able to, highlight, address, etc.
The other thing that has a big bearing on how the solution gets, or how the business resolves these problems, is culture. And if the head of the business is like an accountant, then there's other ramifications. So maybe if they're very accounting style, they want to have a lot of control, but then sales don't drive as fast as they can. If they're very sales driven, then the operational people probably feel like they're not being listened to. So all I can say is, if you're a leader of an organization and you are sales driven, then just go out of your way to listen to the operational people, because they're telling you that there's concerns. And I see this a lot, where the poor people in the operations, whether they're in the stores or in the warehouse or in some supply chain department, they're highlighting the issues all the time, but nobody's really listening to them because it's operational stuff, So I think that those form the cornerstone of good process. So you need everything. You need to drive turnover. That's what got you your accelerated growth. Tick that box. But if you've driven your accelerated growth and your operations fell over, and there are lots of examples in South Africa right now where they've gone online. That's if you're a small retailer, you go online and then you go online, and marketing guys come up with discounts and operational guys fall over, and there's lots of unhappy customers, and Hello Peter becomes your first issue to solve. So yeah, it's not an easy environment, and you've got to tread carefully.
Thanks, Jan. Greig, from your side, any other kind of insights that you can offer there?
Yeah, I think, again, Jan alluded to them. I'll just put them slightly differently in my words. Certainly you cannot manage what you don't measure. And measuring is something that can be done very, very simply. You can make up your own systems. You can use Excel. You can use an abacus if you have to, but you've got to measure what you want to manage. I think that's super critical. I think the three key things that I would say to an organizational leader is yes, measure, but then you need to give clear direction of where you want to go. So even if it is accelerated growth, what is the direction? Why are you doing it? Get your business aligned behind why they're doing what they're doing and where you're actually going. A lot of people through accelerated growth, if they don't kind of know why they're getting there, why they're doing it, it just feels like they're in a whirlpool, upside down one moment, sideways the next moment. It's just chaos. So if you're offering a direction of where you're going, I think that adds a lot of value. Second point, leadership, and again, Jan has covered this off, and so has Marius. But you've got to be a very strong leader, and there's a difference between a leader and a manager. Leader doesn't just tell people what to do. They work with people and they lead by example. Simply put, if there's a lot of work that needs to be done, as a leader, you can't go and play golf and rock up at 10:30 in the morning and tell people, "Well, I actually had a great round. By the way, where's my report? It was due at 10 o'clock." You've actually, I'm giving a very simple, practical example, but you've got to be in there early with the team, working with the team, and really being a leader versus a manager. And then I think the last point, I alluded to it earlier, is around this motivational aspect of it, because people are going to be working hard. They're going to be out of their depth. Everyone has a bad day. Maybe their husbands and wives are a little bit grumpy with them because they're putting in extra hours. So it's really about continuing to motivate people. And one of the easiest ways to do that is continue to drive mindset to continue to communicate actually why are we doing things, how are things moving, what milestones have we got. And when you hit those milestones, celebrate them. It doesn't matter how small they are, because it actually shows that that effort that's been put in to drive that accelerated growth has actually amounted in something. So, you know, we in our business have like a drum, and you know, whenever a milestone is reached, and it's up to the individual to identify what that milestone is. The drum is if people bang the drum, and the whole business stops, and the person announces what they've been able to achieve, and generally we all applaud that. And that's the culture that we bring. So to Jan's point, culture is so important. And to build a culture, in summary, you need strong leadership, strong motivational skills, and that direction. And then overall, like I said, manage and make sure you're measuring what you manage.
And that's really insightful, Greg. I mean, just my take out on that is that definitely communication, listen to your staff. And I think the other thing is actually creating visibility of kind of where we're going. Because I think a lot of the time what happens is we kind of stuck almost in this sort of tunnel, and we don't see light at the end of the tunnel. But by listening, communicating, you know, and being able to put, as you say, put milestones in place, it looks like we're going somewhere, and obviously achieving something, which is good. And giving hope.
So David, I mean, I think you've hit a nail on the head. Just to share an analogy, it's exactly like a train passing through a tunnel. And let's say that tunnel is 20 kilometers long. If you're sitting on that train and you've got no communication or feedback, it's just going to be dark and black. You've got no idea where the end is coming, if it's ever coming, and you can get very despondent. Now, simply put, in the trains example, if you had a little diagram that showed the progress, quarter of the way through, half the way through, whatever, like it's people, the motivation continues, the mindset in the business improves. So, my simple suggestion is find a mechanism to show the progress and the milestones, and then celebrate them, so that everyone feels that we're on this journey and we're actually accomplishing something through this accelerated growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Greg. Marius, just on your side, you're a solutions company. What would your kind of next steps be if you are engaging with companies that have are experiencing accelerated growth?
Yes, thanks, Dave. I think both Jan and I'm going to try and summarize it, and then I do want to bring it back to a little bit of systems. I know Greg he likes his Excel, but there's actually nice options out there. But these days, I mean, information is king. So yes, put in the right systems, put in the right processes. As a result of that is the information, and with that information, you can make the necessary business decisions. With that information, you can start bringing in artificial intelligence. You can start bringing in machine learning, stuff like that. That then just takes that business to the next step in terms of analyzing anomalies. I want to say it starts bringing the full circle. So you experiencing exponential growth. You're employing a new employee. He, for example, loads a purchase order and gets your purchase price completely wrong. So instead of putting 10 Rand, he puts in 50 Rand, puts through that purchase order. That has an influence on your cash flow. With these systems, you can build in artificial intelligence that actively monitors that transaction and says, okay, just wait, there's something here, I've picked up an anomaly. And that anomaly can be on various different things. And I need information to make that decision or to put that control in place. And then that helps Greg. And then we're talking mobile and all of that just makes with people these days, that information is surfaced in various ways, makes decision making a lot easier, and just gives leaders and operational people a better ground or footprint to say, okay, what do we do when this train is coming down the road? So just, yeah. And then just as I mentioned, I think there was up until around 2020, 2015, around about there was still a major reluctance in South Africa to move to cloud. If we just talk about systems and ERP systems and all of that, that is very, with COVID that just accelerated quite quickly. Most of the engagements we have these days, the cloud has to be in the option. Otherwise, and with cloud, software as a service, affordability, scalability, flexibility, all of that becomes very, very relevant and quite easy to say, guys, for not a big investment, you can actually put quite good systems in place to give you the necessary stuff that you need to do to go forward with this growth. So and that's, I want to say, just that is where we, obviously from a software or ERP system, we getting a lot of questions from a lot of customers. We mentioned that as well, is looking at online, going the online route, going the business to business route, and I want to say eliminating a lot of the traditional business functions that used to be there in the past.
Marius, probably another question on that. What are your thoughts on how you address this, just from a systems point of view? There are many approaches. One is kind of small increments, but also versus big bang. And I know that's quite broad. But I mean, what are your thoughts on the approach that should be taken?
100%, Dave, and I mean, with our past as well, you would know that my traditional approach was a big bang, to say, guys, we're getting into this, we're gonna get in, we're gonna get stuck for 3, 4, 5 months, we're gonna get this, and then on that weekend we're gonna switch over. That has definitely changed as well. Most businesses are taking these in small chunks, phased approaches. So let's just get finance up and running. That helps with the cash flow as well. It reduces the risk to the business if there's, I'm going to say, issues that do pop up, because we all aware no ERP is faultless and doesn't have bugs. So that's just part of that. So there's definitely a trend moving towards taking these big projects, breaking them down into different phases, and running them over a longer period of time. And factors like COVID, when's the next lockdown going to come, is playing major roles in these types of environments currently. So hopefully we passed a lot of that, but I do think there's been a mind shift in terms of how people do approach these projects.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I mentioned the big bang versus small increment is that absolutely a big bang does have a place. So if radical change needs to take place, and it can be done in a relatively short space, get the win of that. But also the small increments, actually, there's a place for that as well. Just in terms of improvement, bite-sized chunks, focus, and getting an understanding. And
even I mean, it's not just SMEs at this stage. So I think even major big corporates are also going that route, just to saying, listen, increments is a better approach than the big bang.
Cool. Okay, then just final takeaway.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating discussion, and there aren't any quick solutions. Well, there are quick solutions, but it's having a grasp on your processes and your pain points, lifting your head above the situation a bit, so that you realizing what's going on here and you reacting to issues. Talking to experts and engaging with the community. I know small businesses are so busy, it's hard for them to lift their heads and actually talk to anybody, but I think it's important to get input from a lot of support around yourself. And then I really like what Marius said about the small increments, because to try and do something very big is, one, risky. If it goes wrong, then it's a big problem to fix. Sorry, not a problem, Greg. It's a big challenge to come around. And secondly, the finances needed for Big Bang are significant, because you need everything to be right, and so you throw a lot of resource at it. So I really like the incremental approach, and you can fundamentally change your business by the process. To say, I'm going to replace my ERP. I know I'm going to do it. So you've made the big leap. Now it's, how do you do this in a way that is absorbable by my company, because small businesses they don't have lots of resources to be checking left, right, and center that this thing's running well. That small increments I completely support that. So yeah, I think every business is different, and good leadership is needed here, and open ears, open eyes, ears to the ground. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Jan. That's great. Greg, your final comments.
Yeah, I think two key things. One, it's better to lean forward than stand still. So even if you're not 100% sure about what you need to do, I mean, if you've got accelerated growth, you cannot stand still. You've got to lean forward and do something, and then evaluate it. It either will work, and then it was either by luck, but either way, great news. What Jan said, when you are in accelerated growth, by definition, you tend to fall into more of an operational type of mode. And what tends to happen is that old adage, you really start to not be able to see, the forest for the trees. It just starts to kind of merge. And I think what's super, super, super critical is try and find once a week a connection point with, another business leader, business owner, or someone strategic, where you can actually just apply your mind outside of operational, but back into strategic, and maybe you can discuss and challenge, like-minded challenges, opportunities, just to allow yourself to engage, to see what's actually happening around you. So those are kind of the last two kind of thoughts I'd leave with people.
That's fantastic, Greg. You're absolutely right. I think that you do get sort of down in the day-to-day operational, and just steer the ship in the right direction. You've actually got to pull your head out and absolutely other kind of people, maybe possibly in a similar kind of position as well. Marius, your final thoughts.
I want to come back to, I think Greg referred to it, and I think Jan touched on it as well, as that person, and what I would like to call him, and is that seeker of value within your business. You need to identify somebody in the business that, from an ERP perspective or systems perspective or process perspective, you need to have that resource, and that goes and says, guys, leans forward, Greg, to use your analogy, or Jan to stick his head above all this and just say, listen, let's take step back, take a helicopter view. Where are we? Assess, and try and push the right buttons to say, guys, this is where we need to move to. So I like to call that guy a seeker of value. If you do have a system running, normally what we say is, just from a system, whether it's a seeker of value or super user or power user or whatever you want to call him, if you don't expand that system, if you don't continuously look and say, listen, where can I take this? What can I do with this? What new functionalities out there? That the life cycle of that system just diminishes over time if you don't have that guy. So I think it's important, whether it's going through a growth period, whether it's just normal business as usual as well, is to have that guy identified in the business to say, let's take it forward.
Guys, thank you so much. I mean, this has really been insightful. It's amazing just hearing perspectives on potentially the same kind of problem, which is really great. I would like to just ask attendees if they might have any questions that they'd like to ask the panelists just before we close. I'm not sure if there are any questions coming through there.
Dave, just in terms of, some people are shy to ask in a webinar. If they're thinking of any questions and they want to pose them directly to myself, then I'm happy for them to directly contact me if they want to chat about it, or just have somebody to share war stories with and get some input. So yeah,
absolutely.
if any of you need to get in hold of me, then maybe just chat with Dave. And Dave, I'm happy for you to give out my email address.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I will definitely do that, and that'll be for the panelists as well. Again, thank you very much, guys, for attending the webinar. I've really enjoyed spending time. It's amazing. It's always refreshing having these kind of discussions. And thanks to the attendees for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you down the line. In the next 6 weeks, we'll be having another webinar. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Jan. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Marius. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for organizing.
Thanks, Greg.
Go well.
Yeah,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.